This is the Fantasy Football Game Plan, where we talk about fantasy football and the NFL.
Did you hear about Kamara?
Scoring 5 touchdowns.
So no, he scored 6. And then he got fined $5,000 for having a red shoe and a green shoe.
Oh, for Christmas on Christmas, of course.
But the latest thing is that he has COVID, so he's out, and so is Latavius Murray and all the running backs on New Orleans. They're all out, and their game's tomorrow. But not only that, depending on what happens with their game tomorrow, they're playing a playoff game the following week. And depending on whether the game is on Saturday or on Sunday will depend on whether or not the running backs are able to be eligible or not because of the time period that they have to be out for.
Oh, well.
So they possibly could have 0 running backs for their playoff game is what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. They have Hill. Hill can just go in as running back. The guy plays every position. He plays special teams like gunner. He plays special teams like lead blocker.
Yeah.
For a return, he goes in and plays quarterback. Sure, put him in as a tailback.
Throw him in there as running back and sure.
He knows the playbook. Just go run up north south.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about your shoulders. You're 33 years old or 31 years old. You're never going to get a starting quarterback job in the NFL.
Right. And just don't get hurt when he's playing gunner on the punt team.
Yeah. Fine. Good.
I was looking at your roster. Yeah. And I was noticing for a Detroit Lions fan, you sure have a lot of Packers and Vikings as your main dudes. I mean, you got some Lions in there too. Basically, you got that whole division represented well on your roster. And you got Chubb. I guess you drafted Hawkinson. How many of you, how does your draft work? Are any of these guys keepers for next year?
No. Brand new. I know. So it ends up being like luck at the draft as you climb the ladder, and it's a random pick as well too.
How do you determine draft order?
Random.
There's a lottery or something?
I just as the commissioner, I just hit play.
Oh, you're the commissioner. When did you become the commissioner?
2 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, pretty good commissioner too. I paid the Tuesday after. At the end of the season, I like to pay out the guys. So
okay.
After the Monday game.
Yeah.
Pretty much like Tuesday of this week, I paid out everybody.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure that they want to come back and play again next year. Right. And I don't need I have the money sitting around because I'm not buying I'm not going and buying anything with the money that they gave me. Right. I just wish that this year I didn't have to return all of it. I could have kept them, but
yeah. Well, so how did you think after your draft, how did you think your team was gonna do? Did you feel pretty good about it?
Yeah, so in the league that I'm in, PBR, we start 3 wide receivers. So it's, and then a flex, so potentially 4. So going in, sitting at 8th place, I think I was in my draft order. So up the ladder, there's 10 teams. And then down the ladder, it's at 8th pick and then 14.
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't going to potentially get any of those key running backs. And then in the PBR league, you get 0.5 points per catch, right? So, I thought I was doing strong in my draft order, going after a number 1 receiver and then going after a number 1 running back, which was Chubb, knowing that he was rushing leader the year before.
Okay.
Right? Or pretty damn close to it, right? And I was actually kind of surprised he was still on the board. Henry went right before. The last 2 years, he's just been a beast, just throwing people around. So, yeah, I picked him up, and then it was just going after all the best wide receivers. I really kept my running backs, the 6th, 5th spot kind of thing, knowing that it was keys. But in a PBR league, when you have to start 3, I don't care if I have some Minnesota and some Green Bay guys on my team. Like, you can't complain. Like, I was actually hoping that Michael Thomas was going to be available, and the guy who picked 7 picked him. And so all of a sudden I went for best man up, and it was Adams. And as you could see, I don't even know if Michael Thomas even played other than the first week of this.
Yeah, no,
season.
he was a wasted pick this year. And you got the nice stack with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams.
Yeah, that's my cheat sheet.
But you got to cheer for the Packers all year long.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm a Lions fan, but I don't have I'm not bleeding blue here. Like, I definitely see talent, and I see coaching talent where it's deserved. And that team is just as dominant as any team that's been top of the league for the last 10 years. Seattle has a great coach, has a great quarterback. And look, they're kind of always fluctuating between 1 and 2 in their division. Green Bay's just sitting on top, Minnesota kind of competes a little bit with them. But even my second pick there, Thielen. Yeah. You should see in week 3 and 4 all the trade requests I got for the guy. And the guy was a monster. He got COVID one game. Right. God forbid, he needed a break.
Right.
But yeah. So.
And why are you a Lions fan again?
Oh, just because back in the early 90s, I thought to myself that the team was going somewhere, and then I kind of took a hiatus away from football. Because I didn't really like the running game of the 96 to 2002. There wasn't so much passing. But then when Megatron came into the league, and Detroit kind of had a solid defense with Sue and Avery and Ziggy. But anyways, they had a strong defense. And, and then you can't compare with
Megatron was your big draw, sounds like.
Yeah, but just Stafford's slinging, 3-man coverage, jumping 10 feet in the air, catching the ball. People are still trying to get that replicated. On your roster, you have Metcalf, and people are saying, Metcalf is the new Megatron. How did your kind of team look this year with getting?
Well, I paid big money for him. I paid 15. We have a virtual roster of you have 100 virtual dollars to spend. So he got 15% of my roster. So I spent big on him. And then I got Lockett as well. I figured whoever Russ throws to, I'll get the points there. And early in the season, that strategy worked really well. Because I also noticed about DK Metcalf that if he's being covered by the corner on the Cardinals or the corner from Ramsey from the Rams, if they put a really good cover corner on him, he doesn't have a good game. And both those teams are in his division. So that's 4 games a year where he kind of stinks it up. But in at least 2 of those games, Lockett lit it up because Metcalf was covered. So my strategy worked really well early in the season. I had a really good thing going.
So you started both those guys in
I started both the Seahawks receivers and figured either they would both catch touchdowns, which happens sometimes, or one would be super hot and get all the points. And Russ was thrown to one or the other, early in the season. And then for whatever reason down the stretch, they weren't completing passes. They started running the ball, and they lost a couple of games. And that faded for me because I ended up getting 3rd in my league. And I mean, I felt like I should have won. I won last year, and this team is better than the team that I won with last year.
Yeah, but it's every given week. You can't you don't have anything to say on your couch about the performance of somebody on the field or how the team's doing.
I try to go for consistency, but I mean, the thing for me is what I kind of learned from my team this year, expecting to win, having the best team I've ever had, because I won before with worse teams than this. But really, basically, I mean, getting to the playoffs is one thing. And, that's your responsibility to find a way to get into the playoffs. You made the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one thing. But then it comes down to, who you have and who they're playing that week. Because ultimately for me in the playoff game that I lost, my team did very well. I think I scored 115 points. And I would have beaten every other team that week except the guy I played who scored his season high because his guys were all playing scrubs. And I think every position he had scored a touchdown. His defense, not his kicker, obviously, his tight end, like just everybody on his team was hot. And I think so. He scored 143 points, which he had not done all season, and he, of course, lost the final because his team didn't do that well that consistently. And I won my consolation round because my team once again scored a lot of points, well over 100 points. But so basically, what I learned is making the playoffs, you can control that to a certain extent if you're careful and you manage your team, but once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And if you run up against a hot opponent, there's really nothing you can do about it. I didn't start the wrong people. I wasn't kicking myself like you do sometimes. You're like, oh, I started Lockett, but I could have started J.D. McKissick instead in the flex position. And that would have been a better move. No, in my case, I started all the right guys and I still lost to a hot team.
Yep. And that's just the crazy, rational, impulsive sort of thing that the NFL brings every week. So
yeah, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, and that what also makes your like anxiety go up and make you either have like a great Sunday evening or a shitty Sunday evening.
Yeah,
it's because you're sitting there going, shoot, like there's nothing I could do, and that's I guess like always the fun of fantasy football and where we get into. Like I lost my money back this year by 1 point. So like I ended up with 157 in PBR league, right, which is pretty high, and the guy who won got 159. So
that's close.
Yeah. So, but my biggest, I thought everybody too as well too, and like you pointed out, I had a couple of Detroit guys on my team, and I really did think with Stafford not going down in the first quarter, TJ Hawk would have at least got a little bit more action as well as Marvin Jones, but they just couldn't. I don't know if you ever watched that game last Saturday. Yeah. It was probably the least entertaining thing to watch on TV. I think the Weather Channel on repeat every 15 minutes probably would have given me more enjoyment just reading the ticker on that than what I saw in that game. There was nothing you can do about it. You couldn't flip to another football game because it was the only thing on. And then what's even like kind of crazy, I don't know if this happened to you, the next game, which was like the Kansas City game, which you would think that was like a great, like visual market. I couldn't find it on my cable box at all. It was like a Prime account that you needed like Amazon Prime to get to it. I guess on regular cable. Lucky I have that Zone or whatever it's called. So I quickly was able to put it on my app and then stream it to my TV. But I just thought that was weird that everyone had to suffer through the worst game I've ever seen in my life. And then the next game when you're like, okay, well, at least like Kansas City, I'm going to see somebody with like be competitive, to then get like shut out because you need to subscribe to Amazon Prime to watch it. Because for some reason it just wasn't on basic cable. Maybe that's just where we live. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I have to do the NFL Sunday ticket because I can't, it would drive me nuts if I wanted to see a game for my fantasy results and it was on and they were playing somewhere and I couldn't find it or couldn't watch it. So on an NFL Sunday ticket, I can see, any game I want to. I can flip back and forth, and if you time it right, you can get, one game going into halftime, but another game's just coming out of halftime, so you can, just get lost in that other game for a bit and watch some of your other fantasy players score points while your main, while your quarterback's on halftime or whatever like that.
Yeah, I think it's a must. I think if you are serious into playing fantasy and just kind of understanding how the league works and just interested in football in general, getting these Sunday night tickets or DAZN subscriptions or whatever other subscriptions out there is probably, the key aspects of knowing who's hot and who's not, right? Like, like how else are you supposed to know that Las Vegas drafted a stud as a running back, or Jacksonville had a walk-in guy off the practice squad, do so well over you might hear something on whatever you listen to, but like visually seeing those highlights and those reruns or just scoping things out during the season like that, valuable information when you're coming to your waivers. Like we play this crazy league where we have like a fab where we only have like $100 to like spend throughout the year.
Okay.
So like kind of like drops the the amount of management you can do, and there's no real order. Like if you finish last in the week, it's really about money you throw down to bid on people. So it's actually kind of interesting how that works when it comes down to Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning waivers, right? Because you kind of like put all your guys' bids in, throughout the week, or usually like Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. And it kind of keeps like the management down. But right after that Wednesday, everyone goes onto the waiver wire. You don't need to put any money down. There's just sometimes holds that kind of are a little bit confusing. So like sometimes if you want to add somebody to your roster too late in the week, they'll hold it out. They won't give him to you. Or if someone requests a trade, they won't give it. For some reason, I haven't looked into the settings too much. No one's really complained, but they won't release that player for that week. So say if you put in a trade on Friday, sometimes they won't let you trade for the guy until like Tuesday. So you miss that week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
did you add that feature when you became commissioner about the fab?
I asked the whole league if they would like to go and do that, and everyone agreed. Everyone in my league is a gambler. Like I got some pretty like hardcore gamblers. Like one guy works for like a online sports gambling, and the other guy, he goes to Vegas and plays like gets free rooms and stuff. So all these guys, so money means something. And it's just like when you're playing poker, if you're not betting for 5 cents, you're not really playing for anything, right? Like, so I think having that money, and it kind of gives you that, I think this person is going to make it up for me. Like I picked Carlos Hyde when he came out of injury.
Yeah.
I think I spent let's say $12 on him late in the year. I had money left.
Yeah.
I didn't even start him. I just had him on my bench. I paid $12, so like he'd sit on my bench, and then no one else would get him. That's sometimes my strategy is just like, okay, I'll go grab this guy because he's more value on my bench than he is on your bench, because potentially you're going to be playing him, and like you said, just trying to get to the playoffs is the biggest feat to get to. The next thing is to win the playoffs, but you got to get into the playoffs.
Right. So with the fab, you can make as many moves as you want, as long as you have part of your virtual $100 available to you. Like you could make 100 moves for $1. You could make 2 moves for 50, or any other variants of that. Is that how that works?
Yeah, and you have that for the season. Now, if you use up all your budget, right? So if you use it all up, then players will be released on waiver. But, like, for instance, what we've talked about earlier in the season, say if you have the running back for Washington Redskins and he goes down with a knee injury, and then you want to go pick up his replacement, you don't have the money to pick up that replacement.
Right.
Someone else would pick him up, and then you're stuck with like grabbing like
someone for
low.
$0.
Right, like a Nixon who like Mixon, who's just going to just give you 6 points anyways. So like that's where it gets kind of like tricky in managing, is that so it's just like anything, money in hand is money in hand, right? Like in your draft, you've been saying that you keep your guys for 3 years. So whoever you spend your first money on, right? Like you picked up the tight end and Andrews because you want him for 3 years, which makes sense. Just wish his quarterback could throw, but at least he could throw inside, so it's good for.
Yeah, I wanted to stack him because I had Lamar Jackson, so that's his favorite target. So I try to stack just like how you stacked with your wide receiver and your QB.
That's the secret. What's the cheat code? Just make sure that your quarterback, you pick the number one receiver that your quarterback throws to, and you should have 7 points every week.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things that people can do. All of a sudden a touchdown becomes worth 12 points instead of 6 if you've got the guy throwing it and the guy catching it. Technically you need less touchdowns to score more points if you have a good stack like Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, which you had. So I want to ask you then, basically what I'm saying is, what I learned is, don't beat yourself up. Like, I had a great season. I had a great team. I should have won. I didn't win. I wasn't that bummed out because I knew that I did everything I could. And that's different this year than in past years. Like, I would have just been freaking out, and bummed and depressed for days on end. But this year I kind of learned, it's like, hey man, you did everything you could. And I want to ask you, did you have any regrets, or any kind of thing that you wish you would have done different throughout the year, something that you're going to take into next year when you guys do your draft? I mean, is there anything that you think you could have done better?
No, I think I had a very hot streak. I think I went through 9 weeks of straight wins, or 6 or 7 weeks, 8, 7, 6. I don't know what my win streak was. So I was very happy with the roster that I went through. Davante Adams did go down for the first 3 weeks there before their bye in the 5th week. So that's where all my losses came. But right when he came back, my team was gelling, everything was going. I guess the last thing I'm going to just say is that I probably won't pick Party Man Prater anymore as my kicker, my go-to kicker for 5 years.
Yeah.
The guy was missing this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started him, even though I knew he was injured, on the last week for my semifinals, and he ends up getting 1 point from a turnover touchdown, not even an offensive touchdown. And I knew he was out, and I decided to go out on Saturday and pick the kicker from Buffalo, Bass, I guess his name is
Tyler Bass, I think. Yeah.
Knowing that Buffalo loves scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I guess that would be the thing, is that just look for those high scoring teams, and just maybe moving away from my Party Man Prater, like maybe he's on a yacht doing whatever he wants to do, but he didn't do it this year for me. So if I was going to change anything, I do have a cheat sheet that I'll probably share later on, but I will definitely look at a different kicker because he's old. He's all partied out. I need to find a new party man. Some guy who likes to party and who's a kicker.
Are you sure the drugs that he gets suspended for using are recreational drugs and not performance-enhancing drugs?
Oh, they're definitely recreational drugs. But if I was a kicker, I would be doing the same thing too, right? Like, so there must be some partier out there that can kick the ball, can make it through the field goal, like can make it through the uprights, and can at least boot those 50-yarders, because those guys who can boot those 50, like I picked up that dude this year from Carolina, Sly.
Yeah,
I like Tony Sly. This guy, he's big, he's beefy. Like he's just like he may not be a party man. He probably is a party man, but he's like ripped. Like I actually saw him like save a touchdown.
I think it's Joey Sly, not Tony Sly, but yeah, you definitely want an athlete. And I got Jason Sanders off of waivers, and he ended up being the number 1 kicker on the season. And one thing, he kicks from far away, which is great. And the other thing is that Miami can't really score touchdowns when they're rotating different quarterbacks in every week, and nobody really knows what's going on with that offense. But the kicker, their defense is solid. What's that?
Did you hear that they might even think about? I heard on like chatter that they might even go and draft another quarterback.
Well, sure. I mean, Fitzpatrick will probably end up playing for New England or something next year, right? Because they don't have a quarterback, so he'll be gone.
Fitzpatrick has COVID. Fitzpatrick has COVID this week.
Yeah, he has COVID this week. That's true.
He's out.
Yeah, he's out.
He's out. Him in the suitcase. They're out. Go to another team.
Yeah, well, he's still under contract, but next season, who knows where he'll be. That was fun. Love to chat with you some more about fantasy football and the draft that's coming up. And enjoy the playoffs.
And we'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Okay, bye.